The Celts of Brittany out in force. Well, it's Belgium versus France this afternoon, or this evening, and there's 2 Belgians and 2 Frenchmen out in the breakaway. Tomorrow it's Great Britain versus Croatia. So do we see Jurasek and Kieselowski along with Yates and Froome in the breakaway tomorrow? No. 5 kilometres for the breakaway group before they hit the intermediate sprint. And generally at this point of the race, as we saw on certainly day 1, when they go through those intermediate sprint points, they don't really contest it. They want to keep their group together. But there are plenty of points up for grabs back in the peloton, racing for 5th position. And we saw on stage 2 how quickly it can turn around with maximum points or a big pick-up at the intermediate point and then a stage win as well. Peter Sagan on stage 2 had a 52-point turnaround, courtesy predominantly of the crash for Fernando Gaviria. But again, a reminder, you're racing for green. You have to be on your toes for 3 weeks every time there's a chance for points.
Well, one very small mistake in the race for points can mean game over in that competition. Where a small mistake on GC might cost you just a few seconds, may not even change your position. If you fall in the last 3 kilometres, you're credited with the same time as everybody else in that bunch. Nothing lost, just hope you're not injured. But if you are a sprinter in contention for green, crash in the last 3 kilometres, you get the same time, but who cares? What you don't get is any points, and it costs you the whole competition.
Which is exactly what happened with Gaviria on stage 2.
It's a big difference.
The 2 Belgians at the back of the group here, 2:02, Dimitri Claes, 2:18, Gim van Kiesbroek. Hugely against the odds for this breakaway group to survive, but they're still really encouraging each other in the hope that just maybe they can defy the odds. Wonder how much time they'll lose over the 1 kilometre in that lead into the intermediate sprint. They've got 3 Ks to go before they get to that point, but a final kilometre before that intermediate sprint will see the tempo really pick up within the peloton. Lotto Soudal, Robbie, all those red colours up at the front, the teammates of Andre Greipel, really making their presence felt. That was Postelberger, the Austrian national champion, just sweeping around the green jersey of Peter Sagan, doing a bit of edge trimming and getting himself up alongside his team leader.
Also down that right-hand side, I spotted Marcel Kittel. I'm not sure that he'll want to get up there for points for the intermediate sprint, which is just 5 kilometres away for the peloton now. And Greipel, I wonder how interested he still is. Not up there on stage 1, missed out on points altogether. 4th on stage 2 into La Roche-sur-Yon, where Peter Sagan won. At rising finish, just a bit too tough for Andre Greipel. He's a big, muscular man, as is Peter Sagan, but very different types of riders. Has it been agreed that, okay, I'll just do a really long, strong turn. You let me pass through this point first. 500 metres to go, though. And can Cousin contain himself? There has been a lot of chat, so maybe it has just been a case of let's not sprint each other. Listen, I'm faster than you, believe me, I'm faster than all of you. You might as well just let me roll through and we'll make the best of this breakaway and see if we can spring a surprise on the bunch. And it looks at the moment that is what is happening.
Does look like an agreement with Van Kiesbroek on the front. And Claes just in 2nd position, he stays there. So Van Kiesbroek will lead them through and he collects 20 points in the race for the green jersey. A very long turn of pace. 1 kilometre on the front for Gim van Kiesbroek.
So it wasn't just chat, it was negotiation. Not only a long turn to get to the sprint point, but going on for another couple of 100 metres after it, Van Kiesbroek. So
that's how you say thank you.
Thanks for letting me do that. Here's a nice long extra turn. Take a couple of minutes off in the slipstream.
Now we go back to the peloton to see if the pace starts to build up for riders that are searching for points in the battle for green.
And also that gap still dropping, coming down towards 4 minutes now.
And at 114 kilometres to go, is it 7 minutes and 40 seconds? How quickly it has fallen down to the 4-minute mark. Nice chance for the breakaway to duck and dive through these small towns. It's a good break-up psychologically as they're almost into the feed zone, and a chance for these guys also to drop all the rubbish that they've accumulated throughout the stage.
Also a good chance to take back a few seconds on the peloton. If these guys can get their feed bags picked up by their team cars behind them and then just come and hand them up to them, or at least grab them but not drop the pace, not slow down, because the peloton is likely to slow down, take it a bit easier through the feed zone, play it safe, particularly for the team leaders. Good chance for this break to steal 30 seconds back.
This is now Arthur Visho, who's come to the front for Group Armour FDJ, and that tells us that Arnaud Démare is interested in the intermediate sprint. See those orange shoes off to the right-hand side of the screen. From Dimension Data right in for Quebecer, Mark Cavendish. Cavendish doesn't look like he's showing any interest in the green jersey, but perhaps just getting an indication of where the legs are at.
He's been getting up there in the other intermediate sprints, not going all out, but following the wheels and just making a bit of an acceleration. I think maybe just to get the feel, give the legs a bit of a warm up, wake up the muscles, maybe see if he can give himself a confidence booster of, yep, I can follow them, see who's going for it all out, yep, following, not really trying, my confidence is up, I'm feeling good about it.
That was Timothy Dupont at the back for Wanty Group Goubert. He is a reasonable sprinter, but not interested in this one. Gaviria is onto the green jersey of Sagan. Alexander Kristoff is also there in the white colours as the European champion. Greipel in red, Degenkolb in white as well. It's Gaviria out in front. The lead out done by Richese. Greipel doesn't waste any energy. Sagan stays in the slipstream. Maximum points on offer from the peloton for the Colombian, but nobody going full gas, and Cavendish not showing himself at all.
Well, looking at that sprint, the timing and positioning of Gaviria and Richese was just perfect. Sagan was up there following his teammate, got himself a little bit boxed in. Greipel wanted to make a run on the front, but there's Gaviria opened up his sprint across to the right. Greipel had to just be satisfied with being into the slipstream, following through. No big energy expended, although a little bit of huffing and puffing.
And it quickly has gone down to 3:20 because of the tempo that increased. And then did you note at the front, as soon as they went through, Thomas de Gendt. The sprint was done. Thomas de Gendt returns. Let's get organised.
Well, Thomas de Gendt, he's put all that effort into the chase so far, and without being on the front for 1.5 kilometres, he's won back another 40 seconds for free. I spoke about how the break could go through the feed zone a bit quicker, try and steal 30 seconds back, but Thomas de Gendt, he'll be aware of that. He'll want to just keep pushing it that bit, keep the momentum there. As the peloton now rides through the village of Derval. So the sprint now behind them. 2 more sprints to come today. Bonus sprint deeper into the finale today. About 38 kilometres to go. And of course, the one I'm banking on, the final sprint for the stage win, because I am convinced the sprinters will have their moment today. They won't be denied. 3 minutes 20 the gap to our 4 breakaway riders. Been out there right since the start.
You've ridden the last few kilometres today. The complicated part of the last few Ks is how simple it is.
Exactly. It's always difficult when it's a dead straight run in and when it's wide as well. There's so much room for entire teams to come out of the slipstream, up along the side, and ruin your position.
Which can make it more difficult than a complicated technical twisting turning approach.
When it's twisting and turning, you have the opportunity to really string the peloton out, and beyond the first 10, it's really difficult for anybody else to move up, improve their position. So a really straight run in like this is extremely difficult, and with a headwind, it makes it even more difficult. The replay of this sprint. Gaviria winding it up to 71 kilometres an hour.
He only really sprinted for around about 100 metres.
Short sprint, but very, very explosive, Gaviria. And of course, that little section slightly downhill on the way into, or false flat down on the way into that sprint. Cross tailwind as well, helping them achieve that speed. Not quite as quick as on day one. Gavidia clocking 74.6 in the intermediate sprint. Now that this wind has swung like it has, I expect maybe even a little bit slower than that in the final sprint up to the line, because it's a drag up. It's about 2% the gradient, just flattens out with 75 metres to go. This breeze is picking up, so it's going to be into the face of the riders, slowing them down just a little bit.
A little bit difficult to make that one out. We turn our attention to the peloton once again, and it is Direct Energy coming to the front. The teammates of Mark Cavendish, letting everybody know that Cavendish is still a force to be reckoned with.
Well, it said Berger now on front for Peter Sagan, Bora Hansgrohe with 80 kilometres to go. You wouldn't have given the break a chance, but the infighting in the peloton has contributed to giving them a real chance of victory. 56 seconds, 7K to go.
Dimitri Clay swings off in the red with the yellow shoes. His teammate Perez at the back, with two riders from the same team in the breakaway. Does that cause any cat and mouse that disrupts their rhythm?
Firstly, it gives you more cohesion, gives a good working group. They're going to give it everything. If they can then see we can win this, it gives them a numerical advantage. They could go on the attack, but it's going to be so close, they can't afford to start that unless they reach the final kilometre. Even then, it could spell the death of this breakaway.
This is going to be desperately close. Markus Burkhardt now at the front. Postelberger, the Austrian champion, takes over. J. Robert Thompson from Dimension Data said to Markus Burkhardt, no, you slot in here. So again, it's not fully organised. Port sits just in front of the yellow jersey of Greg van Avermaet.
Marcel Kittel back in about 25th position on the right-hand side. Jakob Fuglsang now being brought back towards the front, up the right as well by his team. More and more fresh riders coming to the front. 44 seconds, 6 kilometres to go. Still hanging in the balance.
Nicky Terpstra going through to the front this time for the Quick Step team. Back of the peloton, that was Damien Goudon from Direct Energy. And he'll just be tuning into race radio, hoping that his teammate Jerome Cousin can hold off. Was that a little bit of cat and mouse that was started? If it is, that spells doom for the four off the front.
Well, for a second there, I thought Cousin was letting a gap open up. He rides himself back into the slipstream of Guillaume van Keersbulk, up and over another turn to the front. They can't afford a moment's hesitation. 40 seconds left of that advantage, 5.5 kilometres to go.
The hard thing for them is the road is so straight and wide. It lets the peloton see their prey.
And they're going to see them all the way in. They're 1.5 kilometres from that final roundabout, that left-hand turn. It's 4K straight all the way to the finish line. Head crosswind, and the road rises up just slightly in the last 300 metres as well. Remains to be seen if they'll even get that far. Here is 5 kilometres to go, just up in front of them. And now, Cousin, he calls Perez in between. The first miss of a turn.
And there's a fall in the peloton as well. How far back in the peloton is this one?
Astana are in there again. A couple of riders from Astana. I think Michael Valgren was one. Right near the front, bike flying through the air. That is really close front. Michael Matthews, I think, was caught up in that as well.
Mikel Landa looked like he was in there.
Simon Guerin slipped through.
Izagirre was in amongst that. And that's Tish Benutz has gone down. Hessink. This is Martinez from Education First Drapac. That looks like Nikias Arndt from Sunweb. And now the fight at the back for riders to try and return.
Very similar scenes to stage one.
Is this Dumont? Certainly looks to be the most seriously injured.
Gone down heavily on the shoulder, and a very small group now left at the front. Something similar to stage one. Around 60 or so riders left in the front of the race. Just over 4 kilometres to go, and still 35 seconds.
Rigoberto Uran, second overall in the race 1 year ago. Clark, Scully and Van Mark doing the chasing for Rigoberto.
Oliver Narsson dropping back. That's a bad sign, because possibly Bardet has been left behind from that crash as well. And it's a scramble to try and get back on, because they're not inside that 3 kilometres to go. They will not get the same time as the bunch.
Riders from Astana moving around to the front. They might be sensing an opportunity. So too Peter Sagan.
Well, Astana are not riding for a sprint, although they've got the excuse of Magnus Cort Nielsen, but they want to be at this point first. 4 kilometres to go. They get that roundabout. Swing left. They're onto the main road, that dual carriageway, like a highway, straight all the way into the finish. And 25 seconds is still the gap for the break, who are now at 3.5k to go. 500 metres the difference.
That is the last of the roundabouts. It's all straight ahead through to the finish line. They're inside 4k's to go. This is Edvald Bosenhagen. Now it's Julian Vermont who comes through to the... Here's the breakaway of 4. Kazan is missing turns. He's starting to get tactical. It's too early.
Trying to get tactical and miss turns, but Perez, he said, well, I'll come with you because my teammate Klaas is in the front with Van Kiersbulk. Kuzan, he slots back in. He's got to keep working. 3k to go and 22 seconds. It's not the same as when he won in Paris-Nice with a reduced group chasing, not that interested in a sprint. This is the best sprinters and their teams in the Tour de France chasing. Uran, he's made contact again with his EF Drapac team.
There's Mikael Landa, number 75 from Movistar. He was involved in the fall. 17 seconds inside the last 3k's.
Radio Tour saying 20 seconds. Well, the break would hope that it's 20 rather than 16. And now it's Team Sky on the front. Luke Rowe, Geraint Thomas, Egan Bernal. Quite curious to see this coming into a bunch sprint, but there must be a little bit of crosswind, and they're playing it safe, and all the sprinters are still tucked away.
And Bob Jungels, the Luxembourg national champion with the red on his shoulders, a man with overall classification ambitions, is supporting.
We now see the gap, and they have them in their sights. 15 seconds now with over 2 kilometres to go. They are going to make the catch. It's going to be heartbreak for the breakaway, and one of the sprinters looks like they're going to get up and get the victory. This is Zakarin.
Zakarin chasing. He's got support, and he is a long, long way off the back. That's Kibalowski who is with him. This is general classification disaster for Ilnaz Zakarin. 2 kilometres. Van Kiersbulk. In the black, it's Kazong. Next in line, it's Perez. In the red with the yellow shoes, it's Dimitri Claes. And the peloton reach out and grab them.
Well, it's Dimension Data now on the front. On the right-hand side, that's UAE for Alexander Kristoff. He's the man in the white on the back of that train. And now they have them right in front of them. The break is about to get swallowed up as they almost get the 1k in sight, and Van Kiersbulk goes alone.
Claes responds to go with him. It's now a battle for this breakaway to be the last rider caught, and it will be Guillaume Van Kiersbulk. He will be caught. It's just a matter of when. The sprinters have him well and truly within their sights.
Perez, Claes, Kuzan, they are caught. Van Kiersbulk still hovering up the front, about to go under the 1 kilometre to go. He is going to get caught. Fantastic effort from him. The chase still on behind, and Dimension Data trying to pull Mark Cavendish to his first victory in 2018.
Big turn of pace done by Reinhard Janzi van Rensburg. He now steps out of the way. Cavendish is third in line. Van Kiersbulk has just been brought back in.
Niels Pollitt looking around for Marcel Kittel. Can't spot him there. Where's the big German? He's not anywhere near the front. Yes, he is. He's tucked right down low in the middle. Kittel's in with a chance. Sagan on the right of picture as well. Greipel looming behind. Gaviria still got plenty of support from Richese.
This is Kundecourt now at the front. He's trying to do the job for Degenkolb. Renshaw is looking for Cavendish. It's Richese now doing the job for Gaviria. It's Anderson in the white jersey. He's trying to get in the action as well. Sagan is onto the wheel of Gaviria. The world champion's in green, and the world champion is waiting patiently. Degenkolb is next in line. Christoph is there. Gaviria goes, but Greipel is coming with the bullets. It is Greipel against Gaviria. The old stallion is fighting his way. Can he hold on? Gaviria slips on through. We wait for the photo.
It's a photo finish. Greipel was in front. He started to fade. Sagan made his run, and Gaviria so strong up the middle. And it looked from the front that Gaviria got there. We saw Greipel drop his head. See it from overhead, we'll get a much better idea. Sagan swings across to get the slipstream. Greipel takes on Gaviria. He gets past. He's in front. He's got a quarter of a wheel. He's fading. Gaviria back over the top. Sagan too late. Fernando Gaviria again.
Sagan second, Greipel third.
Marcel Kittel so far out of it with 400 metres to go. Thought he'd never get there. Gets back for fifth. Groenewegen in fourth. No doubt about the winner. He's been the best.
Zakarin limiting the damage. All damage, 59 seconds.
Big damage.
Wow.
A crying shame for the breakaway to see them pulled back at a kilometre to go. But the team that took all the responsibility in the final have been rewarded.
Look at the King of the Mountains jersey.
Dion Smith up there in the bunch sprint.
Right there amongst it. Gaviria
knows he's got it.
What
Sagan and Greipel, photo for second and third. But the team that did all the work got the deserved victory.
A 50% strike rate on stages at the Tour de France in the career of Fernando Gaviria. Stage 4, and he wins again. He takes it ahead of Peter Sagan with Andre Greipel in third position. It looked so much closer in the head-on sprint finish, but in the end, it was quite clear that it was the Colombian who got there. Sagan in second. Greipel looked good for a while. He got his nose in front, but the final 100 metres was just a little bit too much. And at this point, Greipel had the momentum. He got a wheel length in front of Gaviria, but Gaviria kept on. Sagan pushed up through. Gaviria getting the win. And Cavendish in the background protesting. Super performance again by Flying Fernando. And now he settles in to that time trial position. Crossing some bigger roads, but they're staying on the small ones. This is racing in Brittany. The rider from UAE that you see off to the far left-hand side of the screen with the red helmet on, that's Rory Sutherland, just getting out of the saddle. He's got Dan Martin behind him. Dan Martin will really be looking forward to tomorrow's stage, the Mur de Bretagne. As Luke Rowe in the white colours of Team Sky off to the right-hand side of the screen. And now Cavendish, the leader for Dimension Data. Cavendish on the left at the back, really struggling. Meanwhile, in the pink colours, Lawson Craddock. What hill? Did you mention a hill? I'm okay.
Well, Cavendish, that's a bit of an indication of his current form, but also he knows that what goes up, and he'll roll onto the back of them. So just let himself drift back, saving energy, and he'll probably do the same on every hill all the way in, but also know that he's got not much chance of being competitive for the stage win today with a finish like this, as Chavanel is pushing out. He's not only taken 31 seconds over the top of the climb over the breakaway, he's also done that to the peloton.
Not that long ago, the gap was down to just 3:04, and now he's pushing it back to 3:37. Well, drifting back, it looks as if we're on board. Cavendish on his own. No teammates around him. As a sprinter, Robbie, how would he feel about that?
If he's doing it on purpose, he won't be bothered. If he really can't do better than that, he'll be very concerned for what's ahead on the rest of this Tour de France. But Cavendish hasn't made his name in the hills. He's made it on the flat stages and mostly made his name above 70 kilometres an hour on the run to the finish. He's not done yet, like we said before. Last thing you should do is write him off completely. But if he was really in form, he wouldn't be going off the back on a Category 4 climb this early in the Tour de France.
Not at all. 39 seconds now the advantage for Sylvain Chavanel ahead of his former breakaway companions. Lilian Calmejean, he sits at the rear of that chasing group. Here he is, Chavanel. And in our highlighter system, one here for the Couch Peloton, as the system for today's stage, potential stage winners, they get the green highlighter. We got the blue highlighter next to those who are in the breakaway. Lilian Calmejean, for mine, got a little bit of green on his name as the potential stage winner today.
As Cavendish rides his way back on to the back of the peloton, quick downhill, swoops back into last position. Shows me he's not got a lot of interest in the final of today's stage. As we take a look at the stones in the field, Le Menhir de Trémé.
The meaning of the 3 stones. It was reportedly many years ago there were some 10 stones that were here. There's now only 3 left. 2 of them are laying flat. 1 of them is still standing, and it stands at some 4.8 metres high. There's not a lot of understanding as to what the purpose of them were, but they were listed as a historical monument on the 19th of May 1914, and they've clearly been protected ever since, and they're trying to keep that one last stone, not green bottle, but stone, still standing.
Well, a lot of Celtic history here in Brittany, and makes you think of Stonehenge. So the Celts had their influence right across parts of Europe. You don't have to look very far for the significance of those stones. And this man here, well, I guess now he's dreaming of Californication. Took off on the Côte de Californe. He's put more than 30 seconds into his former breakaway companions. And with around 100 kilometres to go, Sylvain Chavanel, I think he'll be giving himself a much bigger chance of success with this attacking raid than he did a couple of days ago on the road to La Roche-sur-Yon.
Well, he's now back out to 3:47, his advantage. The wind in here with the amount of protection he's got is not really much of a factor at all, but he is very quickly onto the next climb of the day. The Côte de Trémont, which is 1.6 kilometres in length, not quite as steep either as the previous climb at 5.6%. So Chavanel will be able to maintain a really solid rhythm on this climb.
But never flat. It's up or it's down. And only around 25 to 27 kilometres to the next categorised climb, but there's 4 in between that aren't.
They don't look super organised. They're not fully committed to this chase of Sylvain Chavanel. This is Nicolas Edet, number 203. Now it's Tom Scoynes.
What they have done is stop that gap really growing anymore. In fact, got out to around 46 for a moment. So as the road opens up and is not as winding, they're starting to find a little bit of rhythm. 40 seconds, 41 seconds. And this man just really enjoying some time sitting in the slipstream, conserving his energy. And it'd be a pretty good bet to place that if the other 5 riders can pull back Sylvain Chavanel by the time they get into those Category 3 climbs. The very next one to go, and a strong attack it'll be, will be Lilian Calmejean.
Astana, Movistar, Katusha Alpecin, BMC, the teams that are all milling at the front as they go over the top of this Category 4 climb at 3:52. Guerin's not wasting too much energy chasing on the way up, just looking for those flatter pieces of road to use some support. As we see number 32, Tom Dumoulin, returning to the peloton. That quick look at him, I hope he's not ill.
He didn't look comfortable. Behind him was Simon Geschke, the German. This is Sylvain Chavanel, the French veteran of 18 Tours de France. Down onto the top tube, aero tuck, 83 kilometres an hour.
He's looking for every bit of speed that he can get out of the bike.
And he will hold nothing back for as long as he can stay in front, whether that's that he gets chased down and caught by the rest of the breakaway, which he left around 10 kilometres ago now. Will just provide the springboard for Calmejean. But he would love to get another Tour de France stage win. He's won a few times before in the Tour. He's worn the yellow jersey.
He's won 3 stages in the past in his career in this race.
He won 2 in 2010. One in the Ardennes in Belgium, the other one at Station de Rousse, which coincidentally is also where Lilian Calmejean won last year.
And his first stage victory came in Montluçon in 2008. Here's a look at the chasers. Gisbert, how quickly can all change? Hold on tight. The young Frenchman.
Well, there's a big mistake from Gilbert. Whether he's clipped a wheel because he really flew out to the right, or he's just hit a nasty bump in the road and he was down in that aero tuck. We just saw Chavanel doing it, down on the top tube, hands to the centre of the handlebars, really very little control. Flung him out to the right. He held that part up. But once he left the road and he knew he was going into that ditch, hopefully that was a softish landing and he's okay. So we take a quick look at Le Château de Trévarez,
which is one of the last chateaux that was actually built in France. And it was a rich politician, James de Kerjegu, who was responsible for building this pinkish-looking chateau. And he decided to use all of contemporary technology. And he put in some central heating, had electricity, water, hot water on all floors, modern toilets as well. And as quite the compassionate humorist, he ensured that the chateau's service staff also benefit from those comforts, which was pretty unusual at the time in which it was built. It was taken over, though, by the Germans throughout their occupation here in 1941. And then the chateau was bombed by the Royal Air Force on the 30th of July 1944. And on the basis of the information passed on from the French resistance, that bombing took place. It was seriously damaged, partly abandoned, and then the Council of Finistère took over the chateau in 1968 to begin their gradual restoration of that chateau, and it is now only partially open to public visitors.
Well, today the staff were turning their hand to a bit of field art. Chavanel, he's turning his hand to another breakaway, and will it be a Chavanel classic? 4 minutes, he's pushed that gap out to over the peloton. And last check was around 40 seconds lead over his former breakaway companions. There were 5 chasers. We just saw Elie Gilbert leave the road, crash out into that ditch, and we do hope he's all right, but he's no longer in the break. That leaves just 4 to chase Chavanel, with Calmejean sitting on the back.
Another chance to take a look at this chateau. Here is the chasing group. Lilian Calmejean having a chat to his team director from the Direct Energy car. And we're trying to get some updates on the condition of Elie Gisbert. We'll bring them to you as soon as we've got them. Fingers crossed, he is okay. It was one of those crashes that you could see it happening in slow motion, but there was nothing he could do to bring it back.
Gilles, the Frenchman from Brittany, he really was one of the revelations of last year's Tour de France. 2-stage wins in Foix and on the mythical Izoard climb, and winning his first polka dot jersey. And as he said in the interview, he felt like a junior, just attacking, having fun. And when you're having fun, it never seems quite as hard. Although Sylvain Chavanel, he might beg to differ, because this would certainly be hurting a bit, getting a bit crowded in front of him too with those motorbikes. But Warren Barguil, he was a member of the Sunweb team last year alongside Michael Matthews, also roommates. But Barguil chosen to join the project of Fortunato Samsic and really take a leader's position in that team. As part of Sunweb, really a bit of a wild card, a man they knew had talent and was capable of winning races. Maybe never thought he'd hit the heights he did in last year's Tour de France. To this point this year, he said that his form and his results have been rubbish, which is a fair assessment.
Brutal, but fair.
But over the last few weeks, he's looked to be on the up in the recent Dauphiné. He was looking to get a little bit better, although not fighting for the win, but not as far behind, not being dropped as soon as he had in other races. So he looked to be on the up. Question is his form already at a point in this Tour de France where he will challenge in the mountain stages? I think he'll just be looking to stay safe through this first 9-10 days, get into the Alps, and at least start a rush trying to get in breakaways. Maybe go after another mountain jersey, or at least a stage win.
He's always made the noises of a guy who's trying to escape pressure. And that's what he was able to do at Sunweb, because he was rarely the #1 guy, and he got to sneak off the front, win stages, finished 10th overall in the Tour. He won a couple of stages on debut at the Volta a España. He'd been a winner of the Tour de Avenir as well, so there was some hype around him. But that desire to escape the pressure and tell everybody he's not here to race for the overall classification. So he put that caveat on his performance really early on. Unlike Romain Bardet, who says, I'm here and I'm going to try and win. Regardless of whether he does or not, he'll take the pressure. So I was surprised that he left a team where others were the ones in the spotlight to go to a team where everything rests on his shoulders.
And he seems to be discovering that it's pretty difficult, because you can't have it both ways. Say, I don't want to have the pressure of having to get the results, but I don't want to have to do things for other people, because I want to ride for myself so I can get results.
Yes, well put.
Talking himself into a circle.
Yeah, but he's very good, and I'd like to see him at his best once we get to the mountains. Some really emotional wins throughout his career. And you'll note every time that he does win, he points up to the sky. That's for his grandfather, who passed away a few years before he won his first stage in the Volta a España back in 2013, and was a big influence on his career in cycling. BMC still at the front, getting a little bit of support now, though, from the teammates of Peter Sagan from Bora Hansgrohe. But up until this point, really, it's been all BMC with Paddy Bevan and Simon Gerrans.
Yeah, and this is, of course, the workload over that 30-kilometre stretch. Kilometre 95 was around the time of that first climb of the day, and over the subsequent 30 kilometres, really BMC doing pretty much everything. Bora just starting to make a contribution, and the others that get onto the screen, well, more of a coincidence. They're riding a little bit off to the side, catching some wind, so they get credited with a few percent. They give it all to BMC. They're racing back towards the coastline of Brittany. This is Le Cap de la Chèvre, Goat Cape.
And there'll be mountain goats later in the race, but if you get a chance, make sure you have the cheese. Goat's cheese is sensational. There's a beautiful coastline here in Brittany. And you can see why yachting is so popular. It'll be rough and rugged throughout the winter months. but the weather has been idyllic throughout the first phase of this year's tour. Still Sylvain Chavanel, he's not quite back towards the coast yet. On the next climb, they get within 5 kilometres of the coast as the bird flies. Chavanel down to just 3:13 now. He is the leader of the King of the Mountains classification. He's worn the polka dot jersey in the past. In fact, when he last won a stage in 2010 to Montluçon, he was riding for the Cofidis team and spent some time in the King of the Mountains jersey. Mark Cavendish getting dropped once again, and Lawson Craddock in the pink colours fighting to hold on, but Robbie, Dimension Data, they're sending somebody back for Cavendish.
Well, this is not just drifting, this is being in a bad way. And Mark Cavendish, it's going to be a long 70 kilometres if he doesn't get himself back. This is really steep as well. Always hard to do it justice on TV, but if you look backwards from the front, you see how much lower down the riders were, only 20 positions behind. Really a super steep section. But Cavendish, for the second time, seeing him go out the back so far. And other sprinters we're hearing over race radio being distanced as well. Kittel, Groenewegen, that really steep section. I think they'll all get back on. Cavendish, though, will have a bit of a longer chase.
This is Sylvain Chavanel. He will be moving into the lead of the King of the Mountains jersey, hopefully for his sake. He's not far away from the next climb. Then there's 2 more to come. The final climb tops out with 23.5 kilometres to go. If he can get maximum points today, between now and Tuesday, there's only 10 more points on offer in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey, which would mean then for Sylvain Chavanel, he gets at least a few days, every day, up on the podium, getting a chance to wave to his adoring fans.
I'll just go back to something you said there, and it's such a sign of racing in this region. The final climb tops out at 23 kilometres to go. There's 4 climbs after that to the finish line. But we're talking about categorised climbs. But that's just racing in Brittany. It's always up and down. And it is a very tough run all the way into the finish. Three minutes the gap with 67 kilometres remaining for Sylvain Chavanel. And now just 2 chasers with a passenger on board behind. Ede and Skirns from Cofidis and Trek Segafredo, and Lilian Calmejean defending the lead of his teammate Sylvain Chavanel in front, and waiting to see if those 2 riders drag him back towards Chavanel, make the catch, and Calmejean will be let loose.
The overall tailwind still at this point for Sylvain Chavanel, or cross tailwind really at this point. It's going to make positioning in the peloton all important. There's Cavendish. He's at 1 minute and 5 seconds behind the peloton. 65 k's to go. He should be able to make the elimination time today. Should.
But it looks like he'd be doing it all on his own. There was a group quite a way in front of him with Groenewegen. Kittel looked like he was just about to get back on terms with those riders. That group also included Renshaw, who may well drop back to ride with Cavendish. In the meantime, this is the chase. Skirns with a few lengths to Ede, who looks to be struggling on this section. Calmejean, though, just stays at the back. Ede, little acceleration, back into the wheel of Skirns. 1 kilometre to the top for Sylvain Chavanel, and still holding 2 minutes 57. And there's the attack.
Calmejean was waiting at the back. He launches his attack over the top. Ede doesn't have the answer, but an enormous gear being ridden by Tom Skirns, who is grinding his way across.
That's impressive from Skirns. I said it before, as the gap started to come down to Chavanel and the peloton start to bear down on the whole lot of them, is the moment that Calmejean has to decide it's time to go right across. But at the moment, well, Skirns has foiled that plan by being able to get himself back into the wheel.
Do you think that Calmejean should recognise, OK, let's work with him and contribute to the pacemaking rather than say, oh, well, that's my teammate, you chase? I think they should work together.
They'd make a better chance. The best thing Skirns can do at the moment is keep riding and close the gap to Chavanel, and then all 4 of them work together.
Ede has returned. Almost at the top of the climb for Sylvain Chavanel.
Well, the grimace from Chavanel, that gap down around 20 seconds. And Kalmajan would have been thinking, as we see here, a change for Froome.
Mikhail Kwiatkowski once again playing the role of the mechanic, just as he did 12 months ago.
Well, that must have been a drop chain, I think, for Chris Froome. There hasn't been a wheel change because Kwiatkowski is able to just continue riding. So possibly a drop chain for Chris Froome. Something else, still signalling for the car, and he's going to go for, is it a bike change? It is.
Calm bike change for Chris Froome. He's got Kwiatkowski with him. He won't have too many problems getting back on, but it is a little bit of energy that is wasted.
And also neglected to take his water bottles with him.
He needed Jack Bauer with him, who would have collected it on his behalf, as the Kiwi did for Adam Yates a few days ago.
I think pretty quickly, though, the team car will be back up alongside. Give a couple of bottles. Chris Froome will make his way back as Chavanel takes more points.
Extends his lead in the race for the King of the Mountains classification, and now looks like he's going to wait for the others. And he is. They're just about on him. It's Scoynes who still leads. Ede wants the points that are still on offer. This is a Category 3 climb, so there are more points up for grabs. Lilian Kalmajan, though, he is not going to give them away lightly, and Kalmajan collects second place.
Well, he knows now that Chavanel has built up a lead in the King of the Mountains competition. He doesn't want Ede to be able to get too close. Ede might then try and go on a breakaway in the next couple of days, see if he can put himself into the polka dot jersey. Kalmajan playing the perfect team role. 20 seconds the gap between Chavanel and the chasers. 3 minutes to the peloton, and Froome at around 27 seconds behind, but no panic. Got a couple of teammates there.
So relaxed, he's playing with his computer. Now more attacking out in front. 63.5 kilometres to go. Now Scoynes is attacking again. Chavanel looks like he's waiting.
So not much reason to really attack across, but Scoynes doesn't know what Chavanel's doing at the moment. He will now see that he's just been sitting up and waiting. I'll see if they really can form a working quartet when they do come together.
At the moment, Chris Froome looks more interested in making sure that he's got his computer all set up and capturing the data for the stage, as he will have no problems returning to the peloton. Look at them easing their way through the convoy.
Looked more like he was carrying out a rev test.
Little wave from Alejandro Valverde. That's him who's out of the saddle. He's just sat back down again. He's on the far left of the men in blue. Oliver Naesen, the former Belgium national champion, on the left-hand side of the screen with the Belgium colours around his sleeve. He's making sure Romain Bardet stays well protected. Meanwhile, down at the back of the peloton, that rider you saw at the rear, that was Niels Pollitt. And we are just trying to get some information on the exact whereabouts of Mark Cavendish. He's got J. Robert Thompson with him, the former South African national champion, trying to support Cavendish and limit the damage so Cav can start tomorrow. And then tomorrow for Cavendish would again be another day of survival, but the following day, Cavendish is capable of winning.
He is, but I've got to be honest, I'm really surprised to see him this far behind so early on this stage alone.
The reports are
other sprinters are well in front of him.
Reports are coming through from out on the course that Cavendish is more than 3 kilometres behind the peloton. This is Mollberger on the front for the Bora Hansgrohe team.
The first injection of pace, I'm not talking about BMC, but when Bora came to up the pace and assist in the chase, Cavendish had to let go straight away. I mean, quite tough little climbs.
Another fall, little touchdown. The King of the Mountains leader, Dion Smith, is involved. So to a few of his teammates. That's Mikael Nieve from the Mitchelton Scott team. And it was very close to the front.
Well, fortunately for a couple of those riders, they managed to fall onto the grass.
Anthony Turgi is the man in the red colours from Cofidis. Here's Smith.
A little bit of equipment damage. Smith, his handlebars are just out of line. Try and twist them back quickly. Get himself going again. Check everything's okay. And just puffing out the cheeks, Smith, and thinking, this is going to be a nasty little chase.
And I think I just saw Lawson Craddock ride on through a gap. So he's still in contact with the convoy at least. And that is Johan Alfredo from Wanty Group Goubert.
He wants a new bike.
There's Mikael Nievi from Mitchelton Scott. He looks so calm and composed. The red colours from Cofidis, that is Anthony Turgi, who's collecting his biddens.
Johan Alfredo shouting his displeasure.
Meanwhile, out in front, still holding on to a 2-minute and 9-second lead. Plain is known as one of the towns of many character and has got the label of one of the beautiful villages of France, particularly for its cobblestoned central square. It's known as the City of Weavers. And now we see the peloton charging along the banks of the canal as it is AG2R Le Mondial coming to the front on the right-hand side of the screen to protect Romain Bardet. This is a real race for that left-hand corner. Mickey Shah on the silver bike for BMC is trying to protect Port and Van Avermaet.
Well, this is obviously a case of the team directors knowing what's coming up on the course, radioing to the riders. There's a very sharp corner, it's on cobbles, creates a lot of panic. And once they get there, I'm sure they'll say to themselves, is that it? We raced for that.
All of that effort for one left-hand turn, but you can see the impact at the back. They come to almost a grinding halt.
It's an extra effort if you're at the back.
Anthony Turgi, number 208, has just returned. He was involved in the fall. This is Julien Vermont, who was in the breakaway and is now being caught by the peloton.
So since being dropped, Vermont did continue to chase as hard as he could behind that group to see if he'd get back on. He's now pretty soon going to be swallowed up by the peloton with just over 47.5 kilometres remaining, and the gap continuing to drop. But that big acceleration, that took about 17 or 18 seconds off the breakaway.
Dion Smith.
Just a K and a half.
This is the Kiwi, Dion Smith, fighting his way back through the convoy. He had Lawson Craddock with him for a while. Lawson Craddock's no longer there. He's in the convoy, now onto the climb. Chavanel is the rider who sits in third position. He's given the instructions to Lilian Calmejean. Open the throttle. We've got 1:23 for protection. I need more points. A few riders up on the footpath as they're running out of room back in the main field. Valuable real estate at the front. This is Calmejean, still setting the tempo. He'll be left on the front for quite some time. A little bit of calm returns to the peloton, just for the moment.
And the top.
The Latvian sitting behind him doesn't need to come over the top until the last 100 metres. He looks to be the more explosive of these three.
Well, the acceleration by Calmejean just distanced Ede, who just stayed at his rhythm, rode the same tempo. And Calmejean seemed to be propping again in front, but now it's Skjerns who's made another attack.
Skjerns, he does open up a gap, but Calmejean, he's through the gears, and now it is Skjerns who goes on his own. The Latvian is too strong for Lilian Calmejean. The rider from Trek Segafredo will be picking up the maximum points here. Doesn't put him into the lead of the classification, but there is one more climb to come. And if he wins on that one, he could be in the dots tonight.
I think he'll also be doing what we saw Chavanel do when he went on the attack early on that first Category 4 climb. Skirns, when he gets over the top of this climb, he's got quite a bit of descending to do. Only a couple of little rises on the way to the next Category 3 climb. But that is in another almost 20 kilometres to the top.
He's not going on with it. It looks like that was a maximum effort. And he's now just trying to recuperate. That was a lot of energy for 2 points.
So it was just for the points. Here comes Kalmajan. Was the official's red car behind Kalmajan? I didn't spot Ede. I wonder if he's given up the chase. It's just Stefan Kruiswijk in the red, in the yellow and black on the right-hand side.
The human coat hanger, those huge broad shoulders. Meanwhile, at the back of the peloton, they're relieved. The pace has backed off. Kalmajan now, he's been very talkative. I imagine English would be the neutral language between the two of them. Skirns speaks it perfectly with an American accent, and Kalmajan speaks it with a little bit of a British tinge after having spent some time in Nottingham at university in 2012. Here are our 2 leaders. Skirns in the white and red colours of Trek Segafredo. Kalmajan in second spot. And Ede is returning.
Well, they'd do well to keep the pressure on and not let Ede come back, because all he's done is sit on. Saw the disagreement with Kalmajan. It'd be a blow to those two if he got back on and then just sat in third wheel and refused to work.
He's back.
He's railed that corner.
What does he do? You like that, don't you? Quick through the corner.
You don't win by braking.
Sylvain Chavanel now, after another long adventure in the breakaway. He's been mopped up by the peloton.
1 minute, and the catch is fairly imminent.
They make the turn onto the climb. And as we see the Movistar colours down towards the back of the peloton, here is the useless stat of the Tour de France. Mikel Landa was born on the same day as Taylor Swift.
I'll just shake that off and continue with the race.
Very good. Here's the breakaway. Skirns on the front, the white colours. Kalmajan in black in second position. Nicolas Ede at the rear of the group with his seatbelt on, hoping that he doesn't get ejected. This is a gorgeous town. Lucky it's dry too with these narrow roads, the cobblestones. This is the town that I was referring to where the Roman Polanski film was shot in 1979. All the services are underground.
Ede now to the front. Almost looked like he was going to make an acceleration. Maybe he thought he saw the King of the Mountains banner up ahead of him. That's 25 kilometres to go.
Still 1,500 metres to the top. A rush of blood from Nicolas Ede.
It's the first time in ages he's looked so eager to come through to the front. Just 46 seconds to the peloton. And by the time they get to the top in 1.5 kilometres, they already could be joined by the peloton. 630 metres is the gap between the peloton and the breakaway as they come through the gates into the old town of Locronan. And a bit of a traffic jam and a little fall at the back as well, just tripping over.
Just a tiny little touchdown, and that was Rudy Mollard from Groupama FDJ picking himself back up. I know it was Rudy Mollard because he's still sporting all the bandages from his fall on stage 2.
Well, at least he didn't fall right onto the ground. Just tripping over, stepping off the bike.
And for all we've spoken about Lawson Craddock being brave, Rudy Mollard is in a very similar category.
Most definitely.
Freshly laid road surface on this climb. And again, Ede is being left behind. With Skirns leading with Kalmajan, the battle for points and the King of the Mountains classification. And Kalmajan waiting patiently. Their finish line is just about at the top of this climb as they look for points in the battle for that King of the Mountains jersey. Scoynes has looked like the stronger of the two, but he wasted some energy on the previous climb.
He did, but he just seems to have that bit more punch than Lilian Calmejean. Calmejean had attacked a few times and looked to have the better of Tom Scoynes. And then the Latvian went again, and that's when Calmejean buckled. Little hold up again. Darwin Atapuma here at the back, number 92. Sylvain Chavanel goes through the picture. Almost back in position to go for the KOM again, Chavanel.
He just returns. That was just a hold up with the heavy traffic. Fortunately, nobody injured. But again, it shows the benefit of riding at the front. So you don't get interrupted and waste energy by chasing back on. Nearly at the top of the climb, Scoynes and Calmejean. The Frenchman, Lilian Calmejean, at the back, trying to catch the Latvian by surprise. But Scoynes is on his toes. Meanwhile, at the front of the peloton, the man in the black and red colours is Stefan Kung. This is Simon Gerrans, losing contact. Number 82 from BMC. Gerrans just drifting off the back. Matthew Heyman is with him. Here's the sprint for the points. Scoynes leading, Calmejean desperate to challenge, but Tom is too good, and he gets 2 more points.
And that looked to be the decider of who was going to go into the lead of the King of the Mountains competition. And Calmejean bowed the head. The Latvian from Trek Segafredo too strong. And Tom Scoynes, he will get himself a podium appearance this afternoon. In fact, just a moment ago, that was Patrick Bevan being dropped off the back of the peloton, not Simon Gerrans.
Race Radio, though, was also reporting that Gerrans was being distanced at the back.
Okay, distance to the back quite possibly, but in shot was Patrick Bevan at that moment.
With Matt Heyman from the Mitchelton Scott team. On the Race Radio, on the right-hand side of the screen, that's Luke Rowe. Just in front of him in the black and white colours is Jonathan Castroviejo. And speaking of Kiwis, you mentioned Bevan before. The King of the Mountains jersey is right near the front, Dion Smith.
2 of the favourites we've been speaking about all day. One's already won 2 stages, Gaviria. A little bit harder to spot, but on the left-hand side, green jersey, Peter Sagan, he is sitting there in about 15th position, right up amongst the climbers and GC riders, on what has been a much tougher stage than it looked on paper. I think there would have been a few underestimate how hard this stage was going to be, and have come undone. Here at the back, Niels Pollitt, number 147.
That is Paddy Bevan from BMC.
That's with Matt Heyman.
And also fighting back on is Toynes from Sunweb. Here is Calmejean. It's back out to 1 minute and 10 seconds. The peloton trying not to catch them at this point.
Well, nothing to lose for these two now, as on the narrow, bumpy roads on the way towards Quimper. That might be the last classified climb, certainly not the last hill. Having a chat now and maybe saying to each other, this time, let's not let Ede come back.
That's back in the peloton. BMC and Bora Hansgrohe sharing the workload. The others, well, they're splitting it. But certainly BMC have taken huge responsibility for this race right from the very start. And for the past 30 kilometres, Bora Hansgrohe, the team of Peter Sagan, the leader of the points classification, they've been doing a lot of the work also. Narrow roads, and this is a quick descent. There's not much margin for error on these roads. And they're those roads like we saw with the fall before with Elia Gisbert. When you start falling, time seems to slow down, but you can't save it. And just waiting for that moment for the impact, but there's nothing you can do about it. And these are those sorts of roads where there's very little chance to try and get things right if you do make a mistake.
Seconds lead left over the peloton, who are racing for position. They happen to look behind. They'll see the peloton coming into view very shortly.
This is Kalmajan, who is at the front.
And there they are. You could just see them come around the corner behind.
They're not interested in the bonus seconds by the looks of it. Anybody from that peloton. 500 metres still to go. They might just make it.
Well, no one making a big effort to chase it down and make sure they get the seconds. But I wonder if anyone here will maybe take the 1 second. TJ Van Garderen, perhaps.
Maybe.
Give himself a stint in yellow. It wouldn't be Van Avermaet giving the jersey.
Wonder how that would go, though, for Team Harmony. Bad luck. Still Kalmajan at front.
I think if it happens, it would have to be with the blessing of Greg Van Avermaet.
Kalmajan and Scoynes, the two leaders from the day-long breakaway. They're holding on to a very slender 10 seconds.
Or will Van Avermaet himself grab that 1 second?
Just to be sure.
Because he has 5 on Gilbert. If Gilbert gets second, he'll take the jersey. But if Van Avermaet has 6, it'll come down to hundredths of seconds, which may keep him in front. Force Gilbert to have to win the stage to take the jersey.
Well, now Kalmajan's going forward. He's sure to collect the 3. Scoynes looks as if he is about to be caught. And there's a little bit of interest, and you're right, it is Greg Van Avermaet sliding out. And so too, though, is Julian Alaphilippe. And will Kalmajan make it? Alaphilippe is sprinting for the line. The bonus seconds all important for the destination of that yellow jersey. It is Alaphilippe who gets 3 seconds, 2 seconds for Greg Van Avermaet. That means the gap between those two in the overall standings is now just 6 seconds. So if Alaphilippe wins the stage and Greg Van Avermaet is not second, Alaphilippe will be the race leader.
It's tight at the top. And this may be an indication of what's going to happen on this final climb up towards the finish on the steep section, that maybe Alaphilippe will go on the attack, force the hand of the rest, and possibly behind Gilbert or even Gaviria.
Yates on the left-hand side of the screen is virtually on his own with the yellow helmet on from Mitchelton Scott.
Well, it's a very narrow road.
Race radio just saying that Gaviria has been dropped. So certainly it is Gilbert and Alaphilippe for Quick-Step.
And a huge opportunity for Peter Sagan to extend his lead in the green jersey competition. Now Gaviria is gone.
And he's got Marcus Burkhardt there with him. Maciej Bodnar also there to support the green jersey of Peter Sagan. Kwiatkowski now on the front.
Moscon in second wheel now takes over. And Kwiatkowski, relax, just good pace. We've got control at the front. Narrow roads, little switch in the middle. That's Maker.
And now the red colours with the gold helmet. Vincenzo Nibali is the rider who's in second position. Sweeping around the outside is Domenico Pozzovivo.
It's easy to tell the style, the bow-legged style of Domenico Pozzovivo. Got himself up there. Nibali, a lot of support. Sonny Colbrelli, I'm sure he'll be amongst there too. Sagan looks around. He motions to the rider next to him. Go in front of me. Give me some shelter. Oss is still there as his maker. Sagan always shifting around. And even the riders of Wanty Group Goubert with Alfredo now coming to the front.
Johan Alfredo leading the train to the front for Timothy Dupont. And also up towards the front for them was Pasqualon. 3 riders from the smallest team in the race right at the front. This is at the back. Riders getting distanced. Number 205, that is Danny Navarro. A man who will be happy to lose time today. He'll look for the breakaway in the mountains. This is the group of Gaviria.
So Fernando Gaviria well and truly gone. 3 kilometres to go. The action is all at the front. And up around 2 kilometres to go, a narrow passage under an overpass. And then they start the dive towards this final kilometre. We saw it on the way in here today, Matt. So extremely narrow between the barriers. A fast right-hander through a roundabout, which dives down to the final kilometre to go, and then the rise up to the finish line. This is the final battle for position, because after this, there's nowhere else that there's time to improve that position.
And it's really dangerous through here. There's some tight corners to negotiate. Sonny Colbrelli on the left, just getting squeezed by Philippe Gilbert. They both keep it upright, but only just.
Here's one of those fast corners in the roundabout.
Kwiatkowski gaps them through the corner.
This is going to take them under that overpass here. That's taken them through 2 kilometres to go. It's another sharp left coming up straight after that.
Sky in control at the front. There's the 2 kilometre marker. The yellow jersey of Greg Van Avermaet is there. He's got Richie Porte not too far away. This is Kwiatkowski. The green jersey of Peter Sagan is perfectly placed. The green helmets, Edvald Boasson-Hagen.
Boasson-Hagen behind Van Avermaet. Sonny Colbrelli is there. Philippe Gilbert as well.
The
Peter
Norwegians.
Sagan in green. He's sitting in 6th position at the moment. Gilbert in the blue. Teeth clenched. Van Avermaet right behind him.
This is Kwiatkowski. The Norwegians are starting to warm up for the chant of the boss as the Kiwi, Dion Smith, is getting into the thick of the action in the white with the red dots.
Great ride by Smith.
Johan Ofredo, one last little try. Egan Bernal, the youngest rider in the race, closes it down. It is Sagan in green, Colbrelli in red.
Well, these are the 2 riders I think have the best credentials to fight out this stage win. Here's the little downhill through the roundabout. They're going to swing around to their right. It dips down sharply now, and they're about to come through the final kilometre. That's where this climb kicks up. 400 metres, and it gets as steep as 10%. Any last-ditch attacks, they'll come on this next section before the left-hander.
Egan Bernal, the young Colombian, he's living a childhood dream, riding the Tour de France in support of Chris Froome. There he is at the front, Froome in 2nd position.
Well, at the moment, it doesn't look like there's any attack. Gilbert, is he winding up? Philippe Gilbert is going left of picture, the man from Quick-Step. Van Avermaet has got to attack. He's got to go with him in yellow.
Gilbert is going long range. Julien Simon of Cofidis is in there and trying to stick with them. It's then Sagan in the green colours. Gilbert has gone super early.
Gilbert's going for a long one. Simon trying to close that gap and he can't. Van Avermaet knows he's got to rescue yellow. Colbrelli in his wheel. Peter Sagan, Alaphilippe.
Vincenzo Nibali is also coming across in red.
They prop. They've got Gilbert. Van Avermaet has it covered. Sagan looks around. They're coming into the final 400 metres now.
Valverde is there. Dan Martin is there. Alaphilippe abusing Sonny Colbrelli. Van Avermaet finds him on the fronts. The blue colours of Alejandro Valverde trying to squeeze up the inside. The sprint starts with 2:50 to go, and Van Avermaet is at the front so early. Anderson is also amongst it. Colbrelli goes. It's the green jersey of Sagan. It's a drag race with Sonny Colbrelli. Shoulder to shoulder. It is Peter Sagan who is too strong again and collects his 2nd. Colbrelli followed by Gilbert, and that is enough for Van Avermaet to stay in yellow, but there'll be time gaps.
It looks like all the contenders were up in that front group. What a battle between Sagan and Colbrelli. The attack from Gilbert, it split the race apart. But as it came to the sprint, Van Avermaet went for such a long one. Sagan, he anticipated. He waited till Colbrelli started, got himself out. Head-to-head, Colbrelli maybe for a split second got in front. The legs blew. Sagan pushes on. He takes another win. Big smile for Sagan. Finally the salute. Pain for Colbrelli. Gilbert gets a step closer to yellow, but it stays with Van Avermaet, and Sagan beats his chest.
The perfect 10, the 10th stage victory in the career of Peter Sagan at the Tour de France, the 2nd for 2018. He can't be done with yet. There are more stages that suit him. Came in as the favourite and didn't disappoint. He very rarely does. Sagan ahead of Colbrelli. It was then Gilbert, followed by Valverde, Alaphilippe, Dan Martin, followed by Van Avermaet, Kragh Andersen in 8th position, Pasquelon in 9th, and Nibali in 10th. It will be a real battle tomorrow for Greg Van Avermaet to hold on to that yellow jersey, but he's in with a chance, and you know he's fighting spirit. It's his teammate TJ Van Garderen who's in second position at 2 seconds behind. Then Philippe Gilbert, who will be right in there trying to get that yellow jersey and a stage win tomorrow. Geraint Thomas is the next best, followed by Julien Alaphilippe and then Bob Jungels. No real changes on today's stage in terms of those that we consider to be contenders for the final yellow jersey. They all came in with the same group. There's Tom Dumoulin at 7th, 13 seconds behind. Rigoberto Urán, Jakob Fuglsang, Porten, Froome, separated by just 4 seconds. It's then Adam Yates, Vincenzo Nibali, Romain Bardet. But the man with the most work to do is Nairo Quintana. Brittany is the heartland of French cycling. It's all set to host its second day of racing in the Tour de France with stage 6 from Brest to Mer de Bretagne. And the atmosphere at the finish line is already electric, particularly on the back of the brilliant win yesterday of the world champion Peter Sagan. Hello, welcome to the coverage. Matthew Keenan and Robbie McEwen with you. And here is what in store for the peloton on stage 6. It's 181 kilometres, starting in Brest on the western point of the country, heading inland for the famed and feared Mer de Bretagne. There's climbs early, a Category 3 and a Category 4 climb to kick things off, an opportunity for the breakaway to get established. And then at the end, they go across the finish line twice, which is a rarity. It's a 16-kilometre finishing circuit and a chance for the favourites for the stage to do a dress rehearsal. Take a look at the approach.
Not only to do a dress rehearsal and familiarise themselves again with the Mer de Bretagne, which was last visited in 2015 when Alexis Villemors won the stage, skipping away solo, the young Frenchman. But the GC contenders and the more pure climbers will get a chance to soften the field up with that first ascent up this very, very steep wall of Bretagne.
Number 155 loaded up, the big Swede with all the water bottles to pass them off to his teammates. The South African national champion Daryl Impey, number 67. Is he a chance today? He'll be working for Adam Yates, so no, he won't be because of the sacrifices he has to make for Adam Yates. Now that I think about it.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
If he didn't have Adam Yates, if he was outright leader of a team, based on the stage win that he had at the Criterium de Dauphiné, you'd say he's a chance, but he'd be a long shot.
Outside chance, you'd get pretty good odds.
First of all, for the peloton to dispute the stage honours, they need to catch this group. They're making their way towards the first of the climbs of the day, less than 10 kilometres before they get to the top of the first climb. It's a Category 3 climb. 2 points up for grabs at the top of a Category 3 climb. And Dion Smith, he won't have it all his own way. The others will also want the points.
Well, 2 points up for grab. Dion Smith, he knows he can put himself straight back into that jersey. At the top of the table at the moment, Tom Skuins and also Sylvain Chavanel on 4. Smith only on 1 point.
Now, Warren Barguil, the winner of that classification last year, is the rider here with the aero white helmet on. This is the team from Brittany, Fortunato Samsic. He hails from Brittany. The reason he wanted to change from somewhere back to this team was so as he could stay living in Brittany as opposed to move to the south and have to do all those training camps. It would be an enormous occasion if he was to get the victory today.
I don't think it's hilly enough yet for Warren Barguil, and I'm not sure if his form's quite where it needs to be just yet. Maybe it'll continue to improve throughout this Tour de France. Looked like he was on the up through the recent Criterium du Dauphiné. Back to the King of the Mountains competition. If Dion Smith took the 2 points, would put him on 3, still 1 point adrift of the leaders in the competition. The next climb is a Category 4, only 1 point up for grabs. He'd have to win that as well to get on even terms with Skuins and Chavanel. But Skuins, having 2 Category 3 climb wins, would still be in the lead. So Smith would have to get over the Mer de Bretagne the first time and take points to put himself in an outright lead. So he has to win the first 2 climbs, place first or second first time over Mer de Bretagne the first time through. Big ask for Smith to get the Mountains jersey back today.
Big task it is, but it's possible. particularly given they're already out to a lead of more than 5.5 minutes. This is Pichon in the white colours. One of the many hometown heroes today. And at the base of the first climb of today's stage, that is effectively where Laurent Pichon lives. So he's got the home ground advantage, and he will be super motivated for the points there. More family on the side of the road. This is Julien Alaphilippe, who says that it's Bob Youngles that spends more time in the bathroom doing his hair. Two riders that have got such a great bond, one from Luxembourg, one from France. They don't share a love of music, but they do share a love of winning big races with hilly finishes. This year it was Alaphilippe who won on the Wednesday in Belgium at Flèche Wallonne with a really tough climb to the finish line there. And then on the Sunday, the big one, the Doyen, the oldest of the one-day classics, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, was his roommate, Bob Youngles, who got the victory. There's Sylvain Chavanel. This is Simon Geschke at the back of the group in the black and white colours. And sitting just behind him, or in front of him, I should say, was Rein Taroumet from Direct Energy, who had that late flurry yesterday, attacking to try and poach the stage honours.
A good attack from Taroumet, but shut down by Team Sky. They were riding hard all the way into the finish. Once they'd got position, wanted to maintain that at the front. Quite a tricky, narrow finale yesterday to the foot of that climb in Quimper. And fortunately, everybody's staying safe. Unlike other days, there was not a big pile-up in the final few kilometres yesterday. A pretty clean finish. An exciting one too. And today, I think it'll top yesterday's. More attacking opportunities and a different calibre of rider. We saw behind Sagan and Colbrelli, we started to get an indication of riders who will be up there today, like Gilbert Alaphilippe, Dan Martin, Alejandro Valverde, who I'm picking to win this stage.
This is the big figure of Marcel Seberg now in the red colours, right at the front for the Lotto Soudal team. If we didn't have the crash for Tiesj Benoot, you consider him a factor to win the stage. But just maybe, Jelle van den Daart is a chance today.
Jelle van den Daart will find a finish that really suits his capabilities. Probably likes the climbs a little bit longer, but this is the type of Ardennes-style stage and finale that does suit him.
He was a winner in 2011 with a mountaintop finish, but he was really good this year in Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Flèche Wallonne, and looks like he's back to his best.
So these steep 1.5 kilometre climbs, right up his alley. Fernando, for filming me, I'm trying to do a job, and you're blocking the team car from coming up to give me the bidons.
That was
on your way.
That was fatigue, frustration from Fernando Gaviria, because he's not one to really lose his head at any point and get aggressive with riders or the press. But it's been a pretty tough effort at the front for the Quick Step team, who now, given that they're the ones that took over and caused the big split, they're taking complete control of the peloton. BMC can sit back and just watch and wait. Andre Greipel. Dion Smith still at the front, the Kiwi. He is in equal first position in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey, but he slots to second position on a count back. There are 2 more climbs to come in the race for the polka dot jersey. It's the same climb twice, the Mer de Bretagne, and the first one tops out with 16 kilometres to go. The second time over, it's to the finish line. I don't like Dion's chances of making it to the finish line, and the odds are even stacked against him of getting there with 16 kilometres to go. But now for Dion Smith, number 217, that must be his objective. Get to 16 kilometres to go, take another point in the race for the King of the Mountains classification, and move back onto the podium at the end of the stage. This is a fall for Primož Roglič at the back of the peloton. Lotto and El Jumbo, they've just done all of that chasing, and now Roglič is caught out again.
Well, he is having what we would call an absolute shocker of a day, Roglič. His team just done so much work to get him back on, and once he is there and there's relative rest, first thing he does is rides into a traffic island. Not having a good day, needing another bike.
And the bidding to go on. He takes his computer with him.
This will at least be a much easier chase to get back on, and hopefully for Primož Roglič, he hasn't hurt himself.
And we just heard from him a moment ago, and he has said leading into this race that this year's Tour de France will be one of the defining moments of his career, in that he'll make the decision as to whether he'll be a guy that targets the general classification overall and tries to win yellow, or whether he focuses on stage victories and one-week stage races.
I tend to think it's going to be the latter for him.
Why do you say that?
I just look at his build, and he's more of a pure time trialist. It's where he's made his name initially. I think his natural body shape is going to make it hard for him to get down to that really lightweight required to be a general classification contender on a 3-week stage race, and maintain that for a number of years without getting really run down and just completely fading. So I think he's a little bit more powerful, a little bit more powerfully built, suited to shorter stages, only a couple of mountain stages, a time trial within a stage race, those 1-week races like Tour de Romandie, Tour de Suisse, that sort of thing will suit him better. But White, you've got to have a go and find out for yourself. And what an awesome stage win he took last year in the Alps over the Galibier.
It was brilliant. Former junior world ski jump champion. And all that time on the skis, jumping, his upper body's probably just got a little bit too much muscle that he can't quite get rid of. Here's our breakaway at 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
We're talking about being a ski jumper. Fantastic moment after that stage win in the Tour last year, where he came onto the podium and then he displayed the telemark landing.
It's great. That really was good, wasn't it? This is Fabien Grillier, number 186. The overall race leader, Greg Van Avermaet. It's been smooth sailing so far for Greg Van Avermaet. He was never under pressure when Quick-Step put it in the gutter in the wind. He knew exactly where he needed to be.
He was under pressure yesterday on that climb up to the finishing Quimper when Gilbert attacked, and Van Avermaet, he was the man that had to shut it down, managed to do it, and then let out from such a long way, faded to 7th, as Gilbert then got himself up to 3rd and took those bonus seconds. Got himself within real striking distance of the yellow jersey for today's finish.
Into the Department de Côte d'Amour. Quick-Step on the front, showing no signs of backing off. We saw a moment ago one of the riders from BMC, I think it was Mickey Shah, coming to the front, looked as if he was remonstrating with Yves Lampaert, suggesting perhaps going a little bit too quick here, pal. Maybe you can back it off a fraction. And Lampaert waved him away. We don't need you up here. We're going to just keep on doing our thing.
I'd imagine if Shah said to Lampaert, why are you riding so quick? The response would have been, because I can.
And here he is on the front, Yves Lampaert. Meanwhile, let's hear from one of the young rising stars of French cycling, a brilliant climber riding for Wanty Group Goubert. He's also got a degree in philosophy. This is Guillaume.
Interest to take them on in this sprint. He would be the fastest from this group quite easily, but he wants to try and get to the first passage of the finish line here in Mur de Bretagne to take the points. But here's an attack straight off the top, and that's Damien Gaudin. So as soon as they've come through the sprint and got back together, Gaudin, he says, it's time for me to go solo.
He's doing a Sylvain Chavanel. And Smith is on the front doing the chasing. He has not waited at all, Dion Smith. He responds pretty quickly, but Damien Gaudin, he will be difficult to claw back. It's going to take a concerted effort. Anthony Turgis now is going. They respect the strong Frenchman out in front.
Well, Turgis is the man with the form and with a pretty handy turn of speed himself, second at the French Championships behind Roux, but in front of Alaphilippe, and he's the man closing the gap. And Dion Smith just clawing his way back into the wheel of Pichon. But Turgis, he's got his hands full trying to close this gap to Gaudin. And he looks for some assistance, but Pichon, he just made that acceleration for the sprint. His legs will be a little bit juicy, and Gaudin, he just needs to hold them off for another 500 metres or so that they've all made an effort, and then we may see him moving right away. Here is the sprint back in the peloton.
And you see the green jersey in third position of Peter Sagan. He sits behind the blue of Fernando Gaviria. The white at the back of that quartet is Alexander Kristoff. This is Daniel Oss at the front who's doing the lead out. Now Gaviria keeps checking underneath the legs. He's not quite full gas. Sagan starts to challenge. Gaviria opens up. Kristoff in white takes the points.
That's good news for Peter Sagan. He was getting passed by Kristoff. It's better for Sagan that Kristoff passes Gaviria as well. Kristoff, this is going to be too hard a finish for him, so he can afford to use his energy up now. And the other two really trying to sprint in about second gear rather than fifth. Gaviria then looking across and saying, huh. He looks back with a wry smile to Peter Sagan. As if to say, why is he sprinting? This competition's between the two of us. You never know what happens in the Tour de France. And Alexander Kristoff just keeping himself in the background of that competition.
The ancient Petit Seminary that they're now making their way past, which played a essential role in the religious development of the central part of Brittany. And it was in 1669 here that Maurice Pichot opened this seminary, which was known as the Small Seminary, the first of its type built here in Brittany. In 1789, throughout the French Revolution, it was almost brought into complete disrepair, but it managed to just survive. And with the funding, courtesy of King Louis XVIII, it reopened again. It functioned once again back in the late 1800s as a seminary, and then in the 20th century, there were some 400 students there, but they dropped the sciences and they focused on the languages of Latin, Greek, and French. It also operated for a little while as a psychiatric hospital from 1934, just part of the many stories of that old building.
Well, the breakaway now pushing out to 2 minutes and 1, but that's the lead of that man that's gone solo, Damien Gaudin from Direct Energy, the man who was back in the 3rd division of cycling last year, riding for the French Army cycling team, made his way back into the higher level, not World Tour, but of course a wild card into the Tour de France. And now he's decided it's time to leave the group, much like yesterday with Chavanel and Calmejean.
They need to catch him pretty quickly, but he is riding off into the distance.
They tried to catch him. Turgis made a massive effort to try and close that gap. Couldn't get across. Pichon, his legs were still feeling the effects of the acceleration through the sprint, and the rest couldn't close the gap. And Gaudin is moving away.
Well, you mentioned the fact that he slipped back to the 3rd division last year. The team that he was with prior to that was this very team when they were sponsored by Europcar. They let him go. 5 years ago, though, he did win the opening prologue at Paris-Nice. Sylvain Chavanel was 2nd, Louis Vestre was 3rd, Wilco Kelderman was in 4th position. So that just goes to show he's not the sort of rider that you can let drift off the front, because he'll be really tough to beat. Other riders that were in the race that year, Robert Gessing, Tom Bonin, Michael Matthews, and this was the rider that took the opening yellow jersey. He has got plenty of horsepower.
Well, things have settled back into the rhythm in the peloton after that sprint. But let's just take a look at the speeds. Well, maybe those transmitters very slightly out. There's Sagan still in the wheel of Gaviria. And they're not doing 70 there at the moment, so I'd ignore those speed readouts for the moment. And that was not a 70-kilometre-an-hour sprint. In fact, I would say that that only slightly went above 60k an hour.
So 9 seconds now, the advantage for Gaudin. He spent the first 6 years of his career riding with the team that he's riding for now. They had different sponsors then. He then had 3 seasons with AG Tour Le Mondial before riding with the National Army team last year, and now back up to Direct Energy, where they signed him on for a 2-year contract. A 31-year-old who last year won Trobreau-Lyon, a famous race across the dirt roads of the region of Brittany. He's also been a 5th place finisher in Paris-Roubaix. He is unlikely to be caught again by those chasers unless they get themselves really well organised really, really quickly.
Well, there they are in the background, and the man getting a free ride is Fabien Grelier, the teammate of Gaudin from Direct Energy. So these three riders, Pichon in white, Dion Smith in the blue, yellow and white, and Anthony Turgi from the Cofidis team in red, trying to shut down Gaudin, but he's a very good time trialist, and he's known for going solo in road races as well. As you said, a winner of the prologue in Paris-Nice, so he can hold a high rhythm for a long time, and that's why they weren't able to close that gap down initially. The sprint came from Turgi behind. He thought he'd just nip across the gap. It just didn't happen for him, because Gaudin, he was holding above 55k an hour at that point as well.
That was the Nantes-Brest canal that they were just riding past. This looks like the manor house of Compostelle. No, the Abbey of Notre Dame, the Bon Repos. Good place to rest. And this one is a former Sistine Abbey that was originally opened up on the 23rd of June, 1184. It really prospered throughout the 16th century, and it became taken over underneath the royal regime, and in 1534 it then later fell into decline after that and returned to a service as a abbey, and it was a burial spot for many of the viscounts of the leading families of Rohan for a long time. Now under state ownership, and it is open to public visits, and it's the fee that comes through with the public visits that help maintain that old abbey. Damien Gaudin, the 31-year-old, back in familiar territory with the Direct Energy team, building up his advantage once again out to 2 minutes and 16 seconds. There's a real wrestling style with the bike. Second day in a row, this team have had two riders in the breakaway, and the second day running that one of them has gone on the attack solo a long way from the finish line. Well, he's not the only one that thinks that going over the top of the climb twice will have a big impact. Brian Copeland, the general manager of the Bahrain Merida team, the team of Vincenzo Nibali, he likes that it's going over the climb twice. He said, once, it's too explosive for Vincenzo. Twice, it softens up the fast finishes and gives Vincenzo more of a chance.
Well, it's only 1.5 kilometres, the real part of the climb. The next 500 metres sort of just drags on up through to the finish line. Now we're nowhere near as steep. Yeah, that first time over, that'll soften a lot of legs, get rid of a lot of riders, and make it a little bit easier to get position for that crucial final time up, where the race is really likely to split apart even amongst the favourites. And don't forget that little hill at about 4.5 kilometres to go. That is a tricky little spot on this circuit, because the road's quite open and flowing on the downhill. Fairly fast descent, but not really steep. But that little section, very narrow, kicks right, left, then right again onto a steep section, bumpy road. By the time they get to the top of it, they've only got about 1.5 kilometres until the foot of the climb, the final time.
This is Nicky Terpstra now in the blue colours at the front for Quick Step.
So quite an increase in the pace to get to this spot. So they all know what's coming up. They've been made aware of what's going to come at them on this course. We saw their injection of pace, fighting for position to turn in this very narrow stretch across that bridge. Everybody through safely. And Quick Step still in control at the front of the peloton. Gaudin, the Frenchman from Direct Energy, with just over 32 kilometres to go. So just now 16 kilometres away from coming through the finish line the first time, and he has 1 minute and 50 seconds over the peloton.
And his advantage over his former breakaway companions, that is out at 25 to 30 seconds. Here they are, they haven't surrendered. This is Grelier sitting at the back. He's a teammate of Gaudin, who's off the front on his own. This is Anthony Turgi, who's at the front of the red colours of Cofidis. Next in line is Laurent Pichon, then Dion Smith. Smith wants that point at 16 kilometres to go, and he's prepared to work for it.
Well, even if Gaudin gets caught by this group, he has made them work very, very hard to get back across to him. And the textbook move, should they catch him, is Fabien Grelier goes straight on the attack. And fly again for the third day across the top of La Canal de Nantes à Brest, the 364-kilometre long canal. Beautiful for boating along, and of course the bike path on the left side and the peloton racing along the right.
The advantage for Gaudin has stabilised. It's sticking at that 150 mark. This is the earnest chase behind him. Here's a look at the wind direction at the moment. It's a crosswind, 25 kilometres per hour, but they've got so much protection at this point. However, when they get to the finish line, it is really exposed, and it is flying from right to left. So there'll be a real battle for a position protected, and they'll be looking to put other riders into the gutter and keeping them out of the slipstream.
It is very exposed here on top of the Mur de Bretagne. It's going to be a headwind as they come over the top of the climb. So the first time up, even if there are attacks, I think you'll see a regrouping. And they have caught Gaudin now on this little uphill section. And now, does Grelier choose to go?
Has he got the legs? That is the big question, because that was a really tough chase. There was no easing up from Damien Gaudin. It hasn't necessarily been a bad thing for the breakaway, because the chase has been really hard to try and reel him back in, and they might be able to make it to the 16-kilometre to go mark and hear the bell first and give Dion Smith that chance to be the outright leader in the King of the Mountains classification.
Well, look at that time gap to the group now, 1:35. Gaudin had 1:50, and he was 15 to 20 seconds ahead of the chasing group. Then they caught him, and it's 1:36. So you'd say it's more a case of Gaudin has just blown up and faded back to those chasers, because they've always been around this gap to the peloton for the last 10 kilometres or so.
The rider with the green helmet on for Dimension Data, that is Julien Vermont, followed by Edvald Bosenhagen.
Well, you'll notice Cavendish is not at the front anymore. He'll be fading back through the group. Yesterday, he was having a lot of trouble on these hills of Brittany, but he's done what he can for his team, and hoping that Tom Jelke Schlachter can get up there today with a good result. Also at the back of the peloton, number 92, Darwin Atapuma. And next to him, number 213 from Wanty Group Gobert, is their sprinter, Timothy Dupont.
Well, Atapuma was in that third group on the road that had a lot of chasing to do this afternoon, and along with the riders from Lotto NL Jumbo protecting Primož Roglic. Pichon.
Bergy, he was, I thought, the real motor in that chase group, doing a lot of the pacemaking to peg back Damien Gaudin. And now it's the two of them who find themselves off the back of this group as Grelier makes an attack, but it's not enough to offload Smith nor Pichon.
So now Gaudin and Turgi, they have to work together to return to that group. That graphic.
Part of the problem for the breakaway and for Dion Smith, who wants to get up the Mur de Bretagne the first time and take a point, it's dead straight, so they'll virtually be able to see them. But also, because we have two climbs of the Mur de Bretagne, there's plenty of riders in the peloton that know they're going to get dropped on the Mur de Bretagne. So there's no use in waiting to try and do something later. If they're going to do some work, they're going to do it now. Their finish line is at the bottom of the wall the first time. That's bad news for the breakaway, and they're very likely to be pulled back as they get to the foot of the hill.
At the foot of the hill, they still need somewhere in the vicinity of 30+ seconds to be able to hold on to the top. Maybe 45 seconds.
I would say closer to 45 to hang on and get the points on offer. Dion Smith, he knows it. Down into the aero tuck. Bit of talking at the front. Grelier, he wants to wait for Gaudin. The others say, don't wait anymore. The race is here. The race is now. 1:25, just under 30 kilometres to go. We've got to give it everything. You can't afford to wait.
BMC with Soigniers well placed all along the course. This is Yves Lampaert, the Belgian national champion. Collecting not just a bidden for himself in and out the back door. He's collecting biddens to take forward to his teammates. We're seeing helpers positioned along the course to give out water bottles and feed bags. Yesterday, Education First Drapac were really well organised. On all those narrow roads throughout the stage, they had 20 people scattered along the course to hand out biddens and feed bags. They return. It's 5 once again in front, holding on to 1 minute and 22 seconds over the peloton containing all the big favourites.
And the others have been able to convince Grelier to do his share of the work as the 5 now come back together. And that is one of the harder parts of this finale. They've just come over. They'll get generally a downhill run towards the Mur de Bretagne.
And Gerdin, number 185, straight away working. He goes to the front again. And even though just moments ago he was off the back and chasing, shows his level of tenacity.
12 kilometres to the first passage here at the finish line, where the peloton will get the bell. 1.5 minutes the gap. They're also getting that confirmed from the timing motorbike.
Back in the peloton, we've spoken a lot already, particularly earlier in the stage, about the fight for position with the crosswinds. This finishing circuit, one of the challenges is the manner in which the roads really, they're roller coaster style roads. They dip and they dive, and there's some really quick descents. There'll be a lot of tension, and there'll be a fight for the front at really high speeds. They'll be touching 85, 90 kilometres per hour later on this afternoon.
The main descent has one faster section. I rode it this morning. Most of the descent is fairly gradual, a real pedalling descent. There are a couple of tricky little sections as they come through one of the villages just outside of 10 kilometres to go. A fast right-hander, it dips down through the town over a speed hump. A little bit of an uneven surface, but it's really that point just inside 5 kilometres to go, where the road really narrows, barriers on both sides of the road, flicks right and left, and then onto that steep little pinch, which brings them out at around 3.7 kilometres to go.
Change of teams at the front. It is Dimension Data riding for Quebecer. A full, and it is Yves Lampard who has gone down into the ditch. He looks more annoyed than hurts.
Laying the blame at somebody else's feet.
Just a touch of wheels. There's another rider from a to the field.
So the others saw it on time. Were able to throw out the anchors and pull it up. And Yves Lampard.
Fuglsang, it's Jakob Fuglsang. It's the team leader for Astana. So that will require a serious chase from the Astana squad. That is significant. Jakob Fuglsang sits in 11th position overall at just 53 seconds down, which puts him at 4 seconds in front of Chris Froome. This is Rudy Mollard once again.
Well, Fuglsang, he's been given another bike and he is away, and a teammate with him as well. Mollard, he's going to have a bit more difficulty. He's going to be waiting a while for his team car to get through and provide him with another bike.
And despite all his crashes, he has been trying to defend his general classification position, and he's been doing really well in the process. He's in 31st position at just 2 minutes and 1 second down.
Well, he's going to have a hard chase. No teammates that we can see sitting up to wait for him, and the speed is just starting to increase in the peloton as teams start to battle for position, with just 10 kilometres before they get to the finish line the first time, which means it's just 8 kilometres to the foot of the Mur de Bretagne.
Champion 106, Yves Lampard. He looked really frustrated when he was on the ground.
He did. He looked more embarrassed than anything else, trying to blame it on anything and everyone, but he just wasn't paying attention enough. It was his own fault. Now, the peloton doesn't really need to catch this 5-man group. Now, they've got 1 minute, 21.5 kilometres to go, but they've got the 2 climbs. And I think even if they got to the foot of the climb the last time with almost a minute, they'd still get caught.
Yeah. And this is a problem on the left-hand side of the road. That's Rory Sutherland from UAE, and he would have been important at the back end of the stage for Dan Martin. There is Gerrans in the red and black colours with the Australian champion sleeve away from Greg Van Avermaet. No, don't worry, Luke. I'm okay. That was Luke Rowe just behind him from Sky, who he was speaking with.
And 2 positions behind Greg van Avermaet in the wheel of Stefan Kung. That's Richie Port right in the centre. This is at the back. Lampaert in front of him. That's Janssen from Lotto NL Jumbo. Riders being dropped now. Alexander Kristoff going out the back. This is Martinez.
There's Mark Cavendish. And the race really splitting up. And this is going to make things difficult. Rick Zabel was the rider in the red colours just going backwards. In the red colours, that is Danny Navarro. The black, that is Tol Hook. This is going to make it difficult for Astana to get past these riders.
This is a surprise from Sky.
Moscon.
That's Moscon.
Gaviria still at the front. Look at the traffic they have to go past without any cars to take advantage of. This is a really difficult chase now for the Astana team of Jakob Fuglsang.
But the good thing for Fuglsang is that he hasn't ridden on the front yet. Signals, come on teammates, get back in front of me.
That was Valgren that he was calling through.
What he doesn't need is to have to do a turn in the chase. They're 2.4 kilometres from the foot of the climb.
And the rider who knows the numbers more so than anybody else is 217, Dion Smith. He's calculating the time to the 16 kilometre to go mark to get the points to return to the King of the Mountains jersey.
Well, 4 kilometres to get to where those points are.
Now at the front, Fabien Grelier in the black and yellow colours of Direct Energy. It's then Pichon in white, Turgy in the red, and Smith slots on to the back of the group.
Smith needs to finish first or second, otherwise there's no points. A second place is enough to put him into the polka dot jersey for tomorrow, but just 41 seconds now, and they're 3.5 kilometres from where the points are atop the climb.
And all those vehicles going through. This is the town of Mer de Bretagne. The climb itself is a little out of town. They make their way up through the centre of the village, but look at all the motorbikes and the cars that have been called out because the gap is down to 31 seconds. That's bad news.
They're on the climb before the climb. You have to climb up through the town, and then you go down a little bit before you hit the foot of the Mur de Bretagne. So this is a really hard section, just 30 seconds up their sleeve. 3.2 kilometres from the top, so they're still about 1.2 from the foot of the climb.
This is Luke Rowe in the white colours for Sky. Polanski for the Bora Hansgrohe team. And now the story for Astana is the return of Jakob Fuglsang. Number 103, Gaviria. 2 stage wins already. It could be 3 tomorrow afternoon.
He'll battle the man right in front of him, Andre Greipel. But today, there'll be partners out the back. Just get themselves to the finish line.
Grelier has gone solo, and he can almost, still 2 kilometres or so, in fact more than that, to the finish line for the first time. And you can almost see the finish line from this point.
It is straight ahead all the way up to the line. Just a little bend in the final couple of 100 metres, but the climb itself just rises straight in front of you. And it's called the wall because when you're riding at it, that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like it goes up vertical. Still 30 seconds for Grelier. How much of a gap has he got on the rest? And Dion Smith knows if Grelier stays in front, he has to be next best over the top of the climb to get the 1 point required to go into the King of the Mountains jersey tomorrow.
That was the chapel of Saint-Suzanne that they just went past, which is the main church in the heart of the Mer de Bretagne. And it was built thanks to the wealthy Rohan families, a large family back in the mid-15th century. 2 kilometres, and this is where the climb really gets started. And it is Fabien Grelier who's off the front on his own. Dion Smith somewhere searching for another point, and this is Camper Van City.
Well, right behind where it says 28 seconds on the screen, that is where the road goes straight ahead. It doesn't look that bad from the air, but when you're on the road, it's certainly tough.
Turgy in red has been caught. This is Postelberger, the Austrian national champion. And the riders at the back, well, they're just holding on because they won't be a factor in the stage finish.
Well, Dion Smith, he's shown the turn of speed required on the easier climbs. This will be more of a struggle, the steep gradient of Mur de Bretagne. And at the front of the peloton, Bora Hansgrohe, Movistar, Trek Segafredo. This is Grelier, he is the leader. An average gradient of 6.9%, but that's measured right from the bottom at the 2 kilometre to go sign. So it includes that little flat section and the final 300 or 400 metres that's flatter. 10% now, and it kicks up to 12. There's Smith right behind him, and the peloton, they are closing in.
Dion Smith is about to be caught. Fabien Grelier still survives. It is foreshortened somewhat by the camera, but they've still got 1.4 kilometres to go before they reach the finish line, and the all-important points for the King of the Mountains jersey.
Well, Smith looks back, and the way his head sort of tilted to the side gave the impression, oh no, I know I'm caught. That's Pichon.
He waves goodbye, and I'm wondering whether we can find somewhere near the front of the peloton Sylvain Chavanel or Tom Scoynes to sneak out and get points for the King of the Mountains jersey. But Smith has not given up. He's got all his cards on the table, and he is hoping to collect just one more point in the race for the King of the Mountains classification.
Well, Scoynes and Chavanel, they'll struggle to be at the front because at the moment it's the best climbers of the peloton who are at the front, leading not the chase, but just getting themselves in position this first time up. Dion Smith, he's getting towards the top of the steepest section. If he can accelerate again from there, he may just be able to hang on. They are breathing down his neck. Smith is about to get caught. They've got him. He's come to a standstill.
He has, but he's fought bravely all day long. And now number 17, that is Tom Scully, another one of the Kiwis in the race.
He had 29 seconds at the foot of the climb. We said he probably needed 45. I think that would have got him there.
It may well have, because it flattens out a little bit towards the top, just this point here.
That's where Grelier is now. It's still a gradient of about 4 or 5%, but only half of what it was a few moments ago. And it looks like they're about to mop up Grelier as well. 1 kilometre from the summit.
And at the front, they have slowed down quite a bit. They've stretched out across the road. There's no great urgency amongst the big favourites for the stage or the overall classification. Dion Smith, another big fight. Well done, Dion. Number 53, that's Heinrich Hausler trying to survive this one time up the climb before hearing the bell, and then the battle for the finish. There's the King of the Mountains jersey. Tom Scoynes is near the front. He wants to take just whatever points are on offer here. The Latvian from Trek Segafredo has been inspired by the polka dot jersey.
2 points on offer. If he can take that, he will lead after tomorrow as well, because tomorrow to Chartres, it's almost completely flat, just one Category 4 climb underway. So if Scoynes can win this, guaranteed of a couple of days in the jersey.
He's checking over his shoulder, and here comes a move, and this is Pierre Latour. Not a move, just a positioning. And the King of the Mountains jersey, he's sitting behind JJ Rojas. He's sandwiched next to Wout Poels, but he doesn't want to get boxed in.
No,
he doesn't. He keeps the door open.
No sign of Chavanel. Egan Bernal is also on the front row. Tom Scoynes, he is looking good to take the points. Everything back together. No attacking. And Scoynes, 400 metres away from picking up the points. Getting an extra couple of days in the polka dot jersey, and there he goes.
Very clever by the Latvian. Not a big attack, just a smooth move off the fronts. He'll go through the finish line for the first time to collect 2 very important points in the race for the King of the Mountains classification. Tom Scoynes consolidates his position at the top of the battle for the polka dot jersey.
One of the riders from Mitchelton Scott goes out of the peloton and across. Is that Jack Bauer?
Jack Bauer it was. So we've seen plenty of the Kiwis. One in the breakaway all day long, and now Jack Bauer eases his way off the front, and Tom's is joining him.
Well, it's an interesting move from the Kiwi, Jack Bauer, here to look after Adam Yates, their hope for the general classification. But Bauer is on the move across the top of the Mürdner Britannia.
Flick of the elbow, looking for some work from Tom Scoynes, who's quick to... He does a lot of talking, doesn't he? He's going back to the peloton. His legs were only good for that climb. Let's not forget, he was in the day-long breakaway yesterday. Berger now, the Austrian national champion on the front, around the corner safely, but nervously. Yeah, hold your breath momentarily when they go around corners like that and you see a little drift.
Well, looking into the background, behind Jack Bauer, and there is the peloton. So they've got him in their sights. Bauer with a little look back. He's holding, at the moment, 65 kilometres an hour. And now the peloton, they're on that same stretch of road, and they start to accelerate.
Race radio telling us there's a problem for Tom Dumoulin. We look for the rider from Sunweb, and there he is with a mechanical problem, front wheel change. Simon Geschke is doing the job, and now Tom Dumoulin has got a real chase on his hands.
This is a big problem for Dumoulin, this close to the finish, 5.6k to go, and Dumoulin is going to have to ride a time trial to get himself onto the back of this group.
He is the world time trial champion. He's looking for team cars to try and get behind, but they're blasting past because they're concerned about their own riders.
Well, big problems for the Dutchman, Tom Dumoulin, one of the pre-race favourites. Everything has been going just right for him so far. But on this stage in Brittany, he looks like he's about to lose some time as the peloton, they keep smashing it out behind Jack Bauer. They're not worried about waiting for Tom Dumoulin. And it's in about 500 metres time that the road narrows. This is where it's important to be in front.
At the back of the peloton, you could see a rider, at least one from Sunweb, heavy on the brakes, waiting for Tom Dumoulin, who is 700 metres behind. Here he is, 750 metres behind the tail end of the peloton. I bet he'd like a truck as opposed to a Mini to be able to close down the gap. He's looking for some teammates. I bet he misses Michael Matthews right now.
Well, Tom Dumoulin, he has the team car in front of him, trying to get back to the back of the convoy, and he's going to have to make his way past a lot of drop riders as well. We spoke about it earlier with Jakob Fuglsang. He had a relatively easy re-entry and no attacks on that first time up Mürdner Britannia. Tom Dumoulin, this is a much bigger task, but he's getting back in contact with the convoy with 4k to go. This is that little climb I was talking about. 10% gradient, narrow road. Is this a springboard for an attack? No. Bora Hansgrohe are having none of it, the pace they're setting on the front.
Bauer has now been caught. 2.1 kilometres to go to the base of the climb. And up through the convoy comes the winner of last year's Giro d'Italia, Tom Dumoulin, with the teammates who looks as if he might be about to get in the way. And surprisingly, that's Laurens ten Dam, who is the most experienced teammate.
Waiting too much, almost getting in the way of Tom Dumoulin, who's now making his way past the cars. And that, in front of him, is another teammate to try and help him back across.
Chad Hager, the American Chad Hager.
Look at the riders going out the back. There's a problem back here. Crash Bardet.
Bardet has got a problem. He's got teammates there for support. That's Matthias Frank, who's just getting a small push to the right-hand side of the screen. We're looking further forward, searching for number 51. Sorry, not number 51, number 21. Sylvain Dillier is there also. Two riders from AG2R Le Mondial. And Matthias Frank is just trying to get going in case he could still help Roman Bardet. This is Mikhail Kwiatkowski now, who's on the front. Egan in jerseys put himself on the wheel of Adam Yates. This is the chase. Nicky Assant. He's a good sprinter, Nicky Assant. He is full gas on the way down. Once it starts to go up, it's all up to Tom. Bosenhagen now leading for Dimension Data. It is Tom Jelte-Schlachter in second spots. Here comes Marcus Burkhardt.
Sagan was then in the wheel of Alejandro Valverde. They were about 20 positions back. Burkhardt teammate of Peter Sagan at the front. Dimension Data doing an incredible ride for Tom Jelter-Slugter.
Alaphilippe.
Bossenhagen. Alaphilippe starts to go. It's a response to Daniel Oss, who's accelerating.
It's Oss on the front, followed by Alaphilippe. Next in line from Astana is Omé Fraley. Richie Porte is there in the red colours. Also up towards the front, Geraint Thomas with the black and white colours. The yellow jersey of Van Avermaet's not too far away. Fraley from Astana in second spots. And here comes Dumoulin. And Nick Yassin, I thought he would be done on the flat. And Anderson is waiting. The best young rider, the white jersey. Anderson is waiting for Dumoulin.
Well, so many drop rows. Richie Porte's on the attack.
This is a long way to go, 1.2 kilometres. Porte showing himself at the front. Thomas marks him. It's then Yates. And here comes the Irishman. Second the last time up here. He waited too long. Dan Martin is on the move.
Geraint Thomas is the one who responds. Adam Yates is just behind him. Thomas, he's trying to track the move of Dan Martin. Martin missed out here 3 years ago when Villamos went solo. Thomas can't close it, and the gap is opening. Martin, under a kilometre to go. It's now Adam Yates who responds with Richie Porte in the wheel. Bardet is there, and where is Chris Froome?
Martin, he's wearing the special jersey. The zip is on the back, looking for maximum aerodynamics. Valverde is there. This is Dan Martin. He checks across the shoulder. Porte is doing the chasing. The green jersey of Peter Sagan is following the wheel of Vincenzo Nibali. Time losses for Romain Bardet.
Bardet struggling. Dan Martin, he's holding the gap. He's over the steepest part of the climb. He's left the peloton the same way he did in 2015. This time, he's the first man off the front and lining up for victory if he can hold them off into the headwind.
Anderson doing the job for Dumoulin. He's 400 metres behind. This is Pierre Latour now, who's bursting out of the peloton. Can Martin hold on?
It's Richie Porte. He's the one setting the pace behind. 500 metres to go. It seems never ending for Dan Martin. Latour on the other side of the road. He's not even running at the wheel of Dan Martin. He's making completely his own attack, but he can't close the gap. Martin, he's able to re-accelerate. 300 metres to go. Latour is coming, and the bunch is poised.
It is a drag race. Dan Martin, the Irishman, he went early because he was too late last time. He couldn't catch the rider from AG to Le Mondial. That was Villamos. Now that team is chasing, and it's Pierre Latour. But Dan Martin, he's got it right this time, or has he? Because Latour's not surrendering, but Martin is celebrating. The Irishman, he gets there. Small gaps as well. Froome across the line. There's Rigoberto Urán. This is Warren Barguil with Bob Jungels. Zakarin.
Philippe Gilbert.
The third place finisher from last year is coming. That's Romain Bardet. And the clock ticks for Bardet, and this will hurt. The big French hope. He had a bike change, and he has a general classification change. As he 5 years on from his first stage victory in the Tour de France, he collects the result ahead of Pierre Latour. Valverde in third, Alaphilippe in fourth. It was then Maika in fifth, Yates sixth, Mollema seventh, Sagan in amongst all those climbers in eighth. Geraint Thomas was ninth, and Primož Roglič rounded out the top